Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Clinger2. In today's video, I'm going to be going over basically the East Blue on One Piece, which is about the first, I think, 10-ish volumes. It's 10 or 11 volumes. It's the first 100 chapters, and it basically gathers the information on the first part of One Piece, all the characters, the main characters at least, for a while, and it goes on a little bit into the next area with the Grand Line is and stuff like that. But the main thing is I haven't really read a manga before, like, as much as I have now. It's my first, time actually trying to do, an anime, essentially. Or this would be considered a manga. I'm not watching it, I'm reading it. So, according to my friends, it's the better way to do it in the first place. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, first off, we got Luffy, I think is how you actually say it, is Luffy. Pretty much, his treasure is his hat. From his mentor Shanks. He really looks up to Shanks. Shanks is like his big role model. And when you kind of read the story, it's kind of seen as almost like his father figure. Now, I think he does have parents, Luffy, but Shanks is like who he wants to be. He wants to be a pirate because of basically Shanks. And his goal, Luffy's goal, is to be the Pirate King. Now, early on in the story, he accidentally eats the dragon fruit as a kid. He doesn't know what it is, so he just eats it. And he gets it from Shanks whenever he comes in on this pirate ship, which is kind of funny whenever you read it. And if you actually read Romance Dawn, the dragon fruit looks a lot different from the actual, the main one. Because actually, I have Romance Dawn too, and I read that as well. Romance Dawn is just basically the piloting for One Piece, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it is. The personality of Luffy is he's very optimistically courageous, and he can do it to the point of being pretty dumb with it. So he'll brush into battles and have no issue at all fighting things. But at the same time, though, it's how he fights is he fights for good reasons, but it can be very small reasons why he's fighting someone. It can be anything from someone actually being emotionally damaged or being physically hurt to someone probably stealing his food. That hasn't happened yet, but I wouldn't put it past Luffy to do that. He just has a very kind of weird compass on how he ways that he would fight people and get him to fight people and stuff like that. So the main conflict of this first area with Shanks and Luffy is the sea serpent, and the Romance Dawn is a shark, but they changed it to a sea serpent, which I think is a better idea because it kind of makes it more original and it looks cooler. And so the sea serpent basically bites off Shanks' arm. That's why he has one arm now. You can't really tell in this picture, but he has one arm. And then Luffy, I made him smaller since he's a kid in this instance, and basically Shanks saves Luffy, and then at that point, like I said, he wants to become the Pirate King. And at this point, the Pirate King is essentially not a thing. It's if I'm not mistaken, no one's done it before except one dude who gets executed. So there's no Pirate King right now. And then shortly after this, we transition into Zoro, and then you read the anime or the manga long enough, it transfers to Zolo because of a translation difference and stuff like that. And Zoro's treasure is the swords that he has, specifically one sword that's given to him by his dying sister. If I'm not mistaken, it's his sister, and she's dying and then dies when he's in his early childhood, and then she gives him his sword essentially. And that's his prized possession, essentially, and he doesn't want to give that up for anything. His mentor is the one who mentored him, as well as his sister, during this time frame. If it's not his sister, I'm going to get flamed. I'm sorry about that. I probably should confirm that before I start doing this. Anyway, his goal is to be the greatest swordsman ever, and this gets kind of prevalent, because basically, Zoro's whole thing is Luffy. He doesn't want to lose a fight, so he'll challenge anybody, essentially. And that's kind of where his personality comes in, is if someone has a sword, he gets really prideful of being challenged. And this is when Hawkeye comes in later in the East Blue. He challenges Hawkeye, and Hawkeye splits ships in half. So this dude's way more stronger than Zoro is as far as power scaling goes. And he loses eventually, spoiler alert. But the thing is he'll challenge anybody who has a sword, essentially, because he wants to be the best. In order to be the best in his mind, you have to fight anybody who has a sword, essentially. Aside of that, he's pretty reserved. I'd say he's more conservative than Luffy for sure as far as getting into fights. He's more civil because he came from kind of a bounty hunter background, which makes him more of like, I don't know, like a politician type thing, but he's more relaxed and reserved and wants to actually like kind of think things through before just going head charging in like Luffy. That's kind of the big difference between him and Luffy. Like, he doesn't mind fighting at all. It's just he doesn't want to like do it all the time if it's unnecessary. So yeah, in his like little like story, I guess an arc you would call it, they take out Morgan together, and then Alvida is taken out by Luffy very abruptly. Like, I think it's just one punch and it's just over with. At that time, there's like a side character in there that I forgot his name, but he goes to the Navy, and that's kind of the big deal with Alvida. Morgan was more of a fight. Basically, Zoro was chained, and then Luffy sets him free, and then they go fight Morgan after basically Luffy hit his son and then told on him to his dad, which is Morgan. They like fight each other, and then obviously they win. And later in the story, that he comes back and stuff like that. Pretty much everybody that has an X here is coming back at some point, from what I understand. Nami is up next, so I'm going to kind of chronological order here of how basically Luffy acquires his crew. And Nami's up next. The initial portion when they interact with Nami is not as like significant as like the second part. So the first part, it's like a very like, they meet her, she's stealing some stuff, you know. She's not super at all inclined to like join the crew. She's just in it for money. But this is kind of a background on Nami a little bit. So her prized treasure is where she was kind of born and raised at, which is Coco Village. Coco Yasi, I think is how you pronounce that, Yasai. And Nojiko's her sister, who she really cares for a lot. Her mentor was her mom, Bella Marie. I can't do the little asterisk thing because I don't know how to. But basically, she kind of grew up in kind of like a poor household. So she has to go out there and like gather stuff and try to make a name for herself and get money. And that's kind of where she came with. And these pirates invaded, being the Arlong people, the Arlong fish people, and they just want to take over the village. And then she joins up with them to basically get the fish people away from the village. But the people at the village don't really know that until later. But that's kind of besides the point here. Nami's ultimate goal is to kind of get money still. I think that will change. I'm not entirely certain yet. I mean, I just feel like it's a really horrible goal to set for yourself after you get set free from basically that bondage, which happens whenever they beat Arlong later in the story. So I think as it progresses into the Grand Line and stuff like that, Nami will definitely have other priorities outside of getting money. And her personality is kind of deceitful, but I think that might be just because of kind of the setting that it was in the East Blue. I don't know if that will continue on throughout the whole story. But she does like protecting the ones she loves. As said, that she likes her village and she loves her sisters, so she protects the village from basically... She was trying really hard to get everything paid for so the pirates was leave them alone. So her whole goal was to basically get rid of pirates to protect her village. So that's like... She really likes to protect the people that she likes. But she can be pretty mischievous at the same time. So when they first encounter each other, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami take out Buggy when they're in the village where they meet Nami at. And Buggy has like a whole arc that happens like on the meantime between like all the chapters and stuff like that. Like on the first page of the chapters, Buggy is showing like it's a really like small, because they take like all his body parts except his feet and his hands, and he just walks around with like stubs basically, and then meets Alvida later. It's kind of funny. But next up we got Usopp. Usopp's his treasure is Kaya for sure. It's not like they're dating or anything like that, but he definitely has like a emotional tie to her, being that he basically was like a gesture to her. And she was one of the only people I think in the village that didn't just straight up like hate Usopp because of him yelling about pirates the entire time. So he really liked Kaya and likes Kaya. The mentor is his dad. I don't like, from the flashbacks and the East Blue at least, it's not really described a whole lot on what his dad is. He's kind of there, but he's like a pirate. So he wants to be a pirate. Usopp wants to be a pirate, but it's not like a super big influential figure outside of the fact that he's a pirate. Because he kind of just abandoned Usopp. And his mom died shortly after that. So I want to say really an influencer as much as just a goal that he wants to set for himself is to be like his dad, to be a pirate. And that's kind of where Usopp lies, just having a goal to be like his dad. His personality is really crafty and brave, but he doesn't really like, he doesn't know himself yet. He kind of has this whole, for his whole life, up until he met Luffy and all them, he was over there just like telling everybody about the pirates are coming. But that wasn't about the pirates, that was about his dad. He wanted to see his dad come back. He wanted to see, his dad come back from the milk store. That was his whole like objective with that like scenario, was to say like, hey, like, when's my dad coming back? I want to see him. That's really was his like emotional projection onto like the people. Like, they didn't know that. So when it was like the boy who cried wolf thing, when the pirates actually came, they didn't believe him. But to his mind, although they weren't coming, it was him like hopefully saying that his dad will come back one day. So he hasn't really found himself yet. He's really a fight or flight. He's extremely flight. But in the fight with the Erlongs, he definitely showed that he can fight some things with some form of like actual like fighting capability, which is pretty cool. And hopefully he gets better as his character progression goes. He becomes more brave and actually like tries to fight things as he continues on. And then ultimately, Kuro was this butler dude that was serving Kaya and was going to like poison her. I thought this arc was pretty neat. I thought it was set up pretty cool. And then he turns out to be like this cat guy that like kills people with claws. Yeah, then they kill him, kinda. Not really, but you know how it goes. And then anyway, they get the ship. So Kaya's like, hey, you help me out, I'm gonna help you out. So here's my ship, and then everybody gets on the ship. And at this point, we have 5 things that are kind of dead. The only one that might be kind of dead is like the sea serpent, but that's only if it got like knocked out, like just straight up like O code. Outside of that, all 4 of these people, I'm like 90% sure are reoccurring. I know that confirmed Buggy's coming back, Alvida's coming back, Morgan and Kuro are question marks. The only one I think that might die in this whole scenario is Erlong. That's it. But even at that, I think that's kind of probably not true. So next up we got Sanji. So they get on the ship, they're traveling, they're going to Burrito. I forgot why they're going to Burrito, but they're going to Burrito. I think it's because like Zoro knows his like bounty hunter dudes are there, and then Luffy gets told about something about. Oh yeah, it was Luffy gets told that the captain of the ship of the Burrito has like markings on the Grand Line and stuff, which is like the whole objective of like the East Blues to get to the Grand Line. So they get there and they meet. Dude, I totally just blanked on this dude. It's like Chef Kef or something like that. And then that's Sanji's like kind of mentor dad type influence here. And Sanji's entire treasure is this like kind of tale of the all blue. He wants to be a professional, like the best chef in the whole like world. He wants to be like the master of the master chefs. And the only way he thinks he can achieve this is by going to the all blue. Now this is a super like could exist, could not exist. It's like the One Piece of the series, right? This is like on par with that. No one knows if it exists yet. Basically, it's theorized to have all the fish to ever exist in the entire ocean in this one spot. And fish that don't even exist in other parts of the ocean are also in this one spot. So you can get the most, like, basically chef materials here and try to make the coolest dishes imaginable with things that pretty much don't exist anywhere else. That's, like, Sanji's entire, like, goal currently. Yeah, this whole like scene was pretty funny. Like Luffy comes through like crashing through the window and he's like getting like told to like he's gonna have to like work for a year and stuff like that to like pay off his debt. It was pretty funny. Ultimately, yeah, but Sanji, he's pretty charismatic and he's very hard-headed on his cooking skills. He basically killed someone because he dissed his cooking by like frying his head. He gets like really enraged when someone doesn't like his food and like starts kicking them and stuff like that. So there's that. He's very charismatic. At least he wants to be charismatic. I don't think the girls most of the time accept that, or they might abuse him and use him. But he sees himself as charismatic. Let's put it that way. He reminds me of like Brock from Pokemon, like that anime with like Nurse Joy and stuff. So after we meet Sanji and all that stuff, then Hawkeye comes before Don Krieg. Don Krieg gets there first, and then Hawkeye comes. Hawkeye splits Don Krieg's ship in half. Zoro thinks that he's like all bad and stuff and wants to duel with like the best swordsman, like the Blue East, basically, to prove himself. And then Hawkeye pulls out like his little pocket knife and like beats Zoro pretty easily. So that's how that fight went. So Zoro at this point has like internal bleeding and stuff, but because of like plot armor, Zoro doesn't die because he has like a billion injuries but never dies. So that's Zoro's still alive. Next up, we got Nami running off with the gold. So Nami's being a little thief over here and running off with the gold mid-fight, leaving everyone in the dirt and behind, saying goodbye. She waves back. She's kind of crying, but like it doesn't really care a whole lot. And then anyway, she makes it back to Arlong. No one knows that yet, but that's where she goes. Meanwhile, Don Krieg is in the back over here, flexing his artillery armor stuff, and he's shooting shots at Luffy, taunting him and everything like that, and like Luffy's firing back some sassiness as well. Sanji is just kind of holding off, you know. He's just kind of like duking it out with this other guy that has like balls on his clubs, and I don't know, I forgot his name, but it's like a kind of another important character in this like arc. Anyway, it's like a henchman of Don Krieg's, and the dude, he kind of beats Sanji, except for like the very end, obviously, because you got to make the tenseness happen. Usopp, I don't remember doing a whole lot, but I think he threw some fire stars here and there. I think that's about all he did. Luffy actually beats Don Krieg. He kind of like smashes his head like usual, and yeah, that's pretty much it for this fight. Don Krieg loses. Like I said, I don't think he loses, but he loses enough to like be out of commission for that fight. Everyone recuperates, has a good time, gets on this ship that Zeph gave him, the chef gave him, and then Sanji's over here doing an emotional scene with his dad basically as he leaves. Luffy doesn't care because Luffy is only focused on eating at this point. That's Luffy's kind of character stuff. It's kind of funny. And then they leave and they come to Arlong as they get kind of information from basically Zoro's bounty hunter friends. And as they approach Arlong's palace, they see all this stuff. And this is where, like, if I had another slide, there would be, like, a lot of, like, Nami's sister, Nami's mom, the mayor. They're, like, all pretty important characters in this arc. But I'm only going over, like, the main fights. So basically, the sister meets, like, Usopp first, and then, like, they explain what's going on, essentially. Which is the pirates invaded. Nami is actually helping people. They don't really like Nami a little bit, though, because she's kind of doing, like, a dirty deed for good reasons. And ultimately what happens is Nami decides that she doesn't want to be with them at the Arlongs anymore because she sees a better route with Luffy and all of them. And then they have a really emotional scene where Nami's like, kill him, Luffy, and then Luffy's like, time to go in rage mode, and then Luffy goes all hambunctious on Arlong, and that's whenever Usopp gets to actually do some damage to one of Arlong's like minions. Zoro has like infinite vitality in this fight because he gets hit like a billion times and is bleeding everywhere, and his wounds are opening up, and he gets war cuts on top of his already existing wounds. This dude has like 20,000 lives. He manages to like struggle out and like beat the one dude before he passes out on the ground. And at the very end, Luffy like literally just like does a Mortal Kombat slam through the floor, absolutely decimates Arlong's nose, which is like a kind of a big deal because Arlong's nose is supposed to be like not touchable. And then like throws him down the entire palace over here at the top left, and he puts him down from the top floor to the bottom floor, and Nami's over here crying that she's been set free from her prison because that's where she was at the entire time with all the cartography, the stuff where you map stuff at. Cartographer station. And anyway, they all get on the ship together after that, and they're all really happy. Nami got her tangerines, finally. Sanji is over here blocking the tangerines with Nami, and fights off Luffy when he tries to get a tangerine. And they go to this other village, I forgot its name, but that's where they meet basically Buggy again, along with Alvida when she has her slim thing. Fruit. And pretty much Zoro gets his new swords. One of them's cursed, and one of them's like a really good sword, I think. They're both really good swords. And that's where it stops. And now I'm caught up to where I am now. So my review of the book so far in the series is pretty good. I like it. I do think some of the stuff's pretty repetitive as far as like talking, like saying almost like it's more like catchphrases. Like I'm the Pirate King. Like we know Luffy. We know you're the Pirate King, but he's like, no, but I'm the Pirate King though. And stuff like that gets kind of repetitive. Some of the fight scenes, I don't. Some of the drawings get kind of hard to follow along with. That's kind of a minor nitpick. I'm not saying I can do any better, but I'm just saying some of them do get kind of a little bit hard to follow along with. I have to look at them like 4 times. Outside of that, though, I think it's pretty solid. I really do. I think it's obviously built for I'd say like the age range around like teenagers. Probably where it's built around too. Outside of that, I mean, it's pretty solid. I think it's a pretty good read so far. And according to my friends, it gets picked up pretty fast from here. So hopefully it gets even better. So right now, I'd say like it's an 8 out of 10. It's like I don't really read anything, so the fact I've read this is like saying something in of itself. The amount of books I've read is like I can count on my hands. Maybe twice, maybe like 20 books I've actually read in my life. And I've read now probably about 30 books, and 10 of those are One Piece. So if that's saying anything, that's pretty much where I'm at right now with all this stuff. So it's pretty good. I think it's enjoyable, to say the least. And I hope to make more of these videos. Thank you guys for watching. See you.